I'm pretty sure Jim said all there was to be said. As always, he's done an amazingly thorough job. Look, the bottom line is there needs to be transparency. As Senator Tedesco said, we have a budget that is going to be somewhere between $227 and $236 billion. That needs to be done in sunlight. That doesn't need to be done in darkness. There's, over the Library of Congress, there's a saying inscribed on the wall. The essence of government is power, and power, as it must be lodged in human hands, will ever be liable to abuse. That's why it's so important that what the New York State Senate, what the Assembly does, is in daylight, so that everyone has the opportunity to see. We're a representative republic. People don't have the ability to vote directly on the New York State budget or any piece of legislation that we advance in this state. I represent 325,000 New Yorkers. My colleagues standing behind me represent their own constituencies. I need feedback from my constituents, and we can't get feedback when a budget bill is being dropped on us at the last moment with a message of necessity. Now, the normal process is that a bill will have to age for at least 72 hours. That gives a reasonable opportunity for people to review the bill, find out what's in it, and be able to get feedback and make a decision as to how we're going to vote. When you're talking about the budget, that's not one bill with 200-300 lines of text. You're talking about a massive document. That's not just about how we fund our government and what our priorities are, but there are also policy provisions inside that budget. And if you look at some of the major pieces of legislation that have passed through the budget process in just the last couple of years, these are significant and consequential issues that people need to fully understand before we vote. Bail reform, the New York SAFE Act, redistricting, casino gambling, the DNA database, pension reform. Even in this budget, we're seeing the housing compact that will dramatically change the landscape of suburbia if it passes as it was proposed by the governor. More changes to bail reform, the MTA payroll tax, another major issue. And there are dozens, if not more, major policy issues that are going to be contained in this budget document. And the notion that this can be dropped at 2 o'clock in the morning, when you certainly are not going to be here, when we will be here struggling to review something that we're going to vote on at 5 o'clock in the morning with a message of necessity from the governor. That message of necessity enables the legislature to short-circuit the process. A message of necessity means that we don't have to follow the 72-hour rule. And so what this legislation says is not that there can never be a message of necessity. If there is, 2/3 of the Senate and the Assembly must vote to consider whether that message of necessity is actually an emergency. Because now, as Senator Tedesco said, this has become a message of convenience. The budget deadline is April 1st. Our fiscal year starts April 1st. It started April 1st. Gosh, I don't know. I'm new here. But it started April 1st, I'm sure, for at least the last 100 years.
Well,
it's
I
not
was here then.
Yeah, Jim was here. It's not a surprise. And my colleagues on the other side of the aisle entirely control the process. The majorities in the state Senate, the majority in the state Assembly, and the governor have known that April 1st we were supposed to have a budget. As it is today, we know that we're not going to have a budget by April 1st unless something is presented to us with a message of necessity. The fact that you couldn't properly plan, the fact that you couldn't do your job on time, does not create an emergency for the people of the state of New York. And so the use of a message of necessity in this instance would be completely inappropriate. This bill would allow that issue to be heard. And unless a two-thirds majority of both houses agrees that a message of necessity is necessary, that budget bill will not be heard. This is last year's budget. Drop that on someone's desk at 2 o'clock in the morning and ask them to review it for a vote at 5 o'clock in the morning. It's not possible. It's not possible for legislators. It certainly isn't possible for the media and for the public. And you are an important vessel in getting information out to the public. You should have a reasonable opportunity to be able to review that, to be able to get feedback from legislators, to be able to ask questions so that you can accurately report to our constituents what's contained in that document. But to try and do that under the cover of darkness with the use of a message of necessity is a disservice to the people of the state of New York. And so I want to thank Senator Tedesco. This was his idea, and it's a wonderful one. And I'm honored to have the opportunity to co-sponsor it. We are perfectly happy, willing, able, and eager to put in the work. But the bottom line is, we have to make sure that we understand what's contained in any bill that's coming before us, but particularly in a budget that's so critically important. Have an opportunity to digest it, and have an opportunity to get information out to the public where the provisions contained in that budget will have a dramatic impact on their daily lives. So I want to thank my colleagues for being here as well. And again, thanks Senator Tedesco for the opportunity.